Good day, everybody. This is Left Look. Welcome to the show. It is Sunday, April 30th.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
it's April 30th.
It's April 30th.
It's the 30th of April.
Yeah, and I'm here with Jacob.
Hello, Brother Julian.
And DJ.
Howdy, partner.
And have we got a show for you today?
Oh,
Yes.
Do we ever?
Yes, we do.
It is one show. It is a show.
It is a show from the Gatto Institute.
Yeah.
Yes.
Premier independent podcast.
Yes, this is Left Look's premier independent podcast from the Gatto Institute, where we will be taking a look at Canadian and international arts, culture, and entertainment to provide you with an unbiased left-wing perspective. Il s'agit du premier podcast indépendant de l'Institut Gatto où nous pencherons sur les arts, la culture et le divertissement canadien et international pour vous offrir une perspective impartiale et de gauche.
I remember being promised last time that the sped up version would be followed.
Premier independent podcast. We'll be taking a look at Canadian and
That one?
Yeah, that it would be followed up with a very slowed down, deep voiced version. I was dreading, if I'm going to be honest.
You know what I was expecting? I wasn't sure if it was a fake out at first. I wasn't sure if Julian was actually reading it, and I was kind of expecting it to just get faster and faster as it went along.
That'd have been hilarious.
You know what neither of you guys are expecting?
What?
Oh
no.
Bing, bing.
We just lost 10,000 listeners on that audio assault.
Darn! There goes our numbers.
But we gained,
The audio files left.
We gained 20,000 crazy frogs.
Yeah, which is really what counts at the end of the day.
They are a movement. Julian, before the show we were talking, and I remember I was asking you last week if you had upgraded your AI assistant that we were talking about, like you had said, and you were giving me reasons as to why not. Go ahead.
I did not, largely because any like assistant you could get that's like branded or marketed that way is just going to be accessing ChatGPT-4 under the hood. So, yeah, my short answer there was I'm just sticking to ChatGPT. But
do you foresee how far off, like a mental timeline, do you see, like a Jarvis-style AI worth the money to invest into?
Ooh, man, it could already be out there, but I don't know. Like, I don't know
what's a price point that you would want something like that.
I mean, I'm paying $20 a month for GPT-4, so I wouldn't want to go much higher than that. Yeah.
Really? I
Yes.
don't know, like a really good AI assistant, I could see me dishing out $100 a month for that.
Yeah. It depends how much
Depends
use
what
you
you're
get out
doing.
of it.
Yeah, it depends on the return on it. Like if I had a good law job,
Oh yeah.
I could justify that immediately, right? Right now, not at all, but I would probably still do it.
That tech is probably locked behind the billionaire paywall anyways.
Yeah. But no, I said we should talk about this on the show because DJ, you were making a joke about just paying like a Kenyan slave to do it or something.
I was just going to make the joke before you mentioned how little you're paying. I was going to say, you should just hire me to access ChatGPT for you. Like, I'd do that. I'd be your assistant, and then I'd do the legwork.
Yeah.
But $20 a month? Go get bent.
It's I have to bring it up because that's exactly where this whole AI thing was going prior to ChatGPT. There was a competitor called HAL, like just straight up ripping off HAL.
Yeah.
And
From 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yep. Yeah, same icon and everything. It was crazy. But their business model was they would connect you to people who would perform like AI services in air quotes, like manage your calendar or set stuff up. But it's just people on the other end, like pretending to be the robot.
Yeah.
And,
Can you imagine? We'll find you NPCs.
I actually can imagine. I almost had a job doing that.
Oof.
Yeah. Late last year, I was looking around for jobs, and the pay was not bad. And basically, that's what it was. It was like, hey, we can connect you to like several millionaires as long as you just go straight for them and manage their life.
Yep.
And I went, honestly, yeah, my brain's more turned on than like those idiots if you're gonna pay me, then fine. I'll find some time in my day to manage your life too, because I'm sure I can juggle both.
Yeah.
What was the pay like?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I think starting was like $20 an hour. I
20
think it
bucks
was
an
like
hour.
I think it was like a contractional thing too, where it was like per person. So you
Damn.
could like if you could juggle
Juggle
more
people.
than you could make way more.
Damn. So I wonder what it means to be working per hour when you can't work 8 hours a day juggling one person's life. It would take maybe 45 minutes for me to handle everyone's business for one day, right?
Well, yeah, I think the idea was that you were
on
you were
call.
yeah, essentially. So if the
Yeah.
person needed you to be like, "Hey, Jack, fill in my 3 p.m. with yada yada," then you would be there to go, "All right, Mr. Moneybags, I'll
Yes,
get
sir.
right on that."
Yeah. Or miss, that was sexist.
A little bit.
There's no
I was-
Miss
I was-
Moneybags.
I was-
Anyways,
was kinda giving
I
on a
like
gruff
that.
voice.
That's a terrible and dystopian bit. But at least we can all be satisfied now that that slaves have no option for labor and that they'll just have to starve.
Yeah, and
that
the
AI
robo
can
slaves.
replace even those people.
Well, no, I think we're gonna.
I think you had an article you wanted to open up with, DJ.
Maybe a little bit, but Julian, you had something to add? Oh,
Sorry?
some more coughing.
Yeah, no, I'm just
No.
gonna do this all episode and be really annoying about it. Actually,
Yeah. Well, hey, music to my ears.
I think we're gonna find a middle ground between both of those different AIs, where you're probably
Yeah.
you're subscribed to a service and you talk to a slave, but that slave has access to GPT-4 and they can use that to do whatever needs to be done.
There's
Yeah.
a game. I wish I could remember the title of it. I think it's more of a visual novel, if I'm remembering correctly.
Was it Papers, Please?
No. Great game though. But the premise of the game is basically what you just described. And this game came out like 5 years ago, before AI really took off like it is right now.
Yeah.
And you, as the PC, work at this firm whose robot AI is like a psychologist, right? Like a therapist. And you are really just like the human voice and the human face. And all your task is to like, oh, the robot's saying this. So as the actor, I have to give the patient this information.
Right.
Read the screen, basically. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, very, and the whole crux of the game is like, do I just do what the robot says, or do I actually look at the thing and be like, well, no, I'm a real human, I can,
Yeah.
maybe empathy is needed here.
Do you add your judgment to the mix?
Yes.
No, I'm sure the AI would give you a command prompt, empathy brackets, and then the and then the line that they want you to say.
Yeah.
Stern.
Yeah. Sternly, with force.
Yeah, with gusto.
Yeah. Concerning.
Excitedly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If y'all want a game, go, I don't know, Google therapy
Yeah.
robot AI game.
That sounds awful, but I love really terrible games.
Yeah, I was
Maybe
just
would
about
like
to
it.
shit all over your choice of games, so
Yeah.
I'm glad you took the initiative.
I'll beat you to that punch. I understand I'm a miscreant, scum, ne'er-do-well.
I was gonna say niche. You didn't have to go so harsh.
No.
Very niche crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned an article. It's not really an article.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's a fair assumption. I was literally just listening to the radio this morning.
Oh,
And
right.
yeah, the radio. Sometimes I turn it on just to like wake up a little bit, and it's basically tuned to CBC.
State-funded
I
media.
was, yeah, I was
Oh, I
untuned.
can't stand CBC. But go ahead.
Honestly, it's mostly for the weather. I'll be honest with you.
All right.
I usually check the clock and go, it's probably like news time. Maybe I missed it. But sometimes I'm a little early.
Who's your weather guy?
I don't know.
Oh.
They've been different, right? At one point in my life, I would have been able to tell you, but not these days.
Ah.
I never would have been able to tell you.
Joe Cummings, I remember, he's like the noon, he's like the prime time, daytime radio voice.
Okay. Yeah.
And with a handle like that, I could never forget his name.
No.
Anyways, right, so I'm sitting there this morning in a daze listening to whatever jargon they're crapping about. And then they change topics quite quickly because they have like a 5-minute segment to cover all the major headlines. And apparently there's a row, there's a ruckus going on in the, as there always is, in the renting sphere, the tenant sphere.
Oh yeah.
Rentoids.
Yeah, let's call them rentoids, sure. And to boil it down, this dude, I think it was a dude, I shouldn't assume, I'm not certain. This person went out of their way recently, and I'm not sure how recent, but I digress. And they went out of their way to make a website called ratemylandlord.net or .com.
Oh.
Oof.
I think this is currently just a Canadian initiative. I'm not certain, but made this website. It's been a huge hit, and similar to Rate My Teacher or like a Yelp review, I guess.
Yeah.
People can go on and just be like, "Yep, here," and it's all anonymous. There's no tie-in with anyone's email. It's just like, here's a post about this landlord who owns this property. They're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Right? That's fantastic. Good on them. That's just great. Super. That is
Except
the equivalent.
They're all pieces of shit, so how does it work?
Exactly, right?
Well,
They're all pieces of shit, and I'll get to that in a moment. The funny part is that on live radio, this host had to say, and the poor landlords are pretty upset about it. Gosh darn, jeez. The poor landlords, and they had like a snippet of the independent board of landlord, I don't know, like protection, like, I don't know, some faceless void of nonsense. Yeah. And the spokesperson of this board is like, yeah, this is hurting the reputation of a lot of landlords because a lot of these reviews are really unfounded and they don't have legal, backings to make these kind of claims.
Jeez.
Right? Just where the hell do you get off even saying that, you pretentious motherfuckers? God,
they're the whiniest class of people. Like, for someone who, like, you're self-starter, you're putting this capital at risk. They seem to think that they have to take no risks. You know what I mean? There should be no negatives to them being a landlord. It's like, dude, you are betting that this person can provide you income month to month, and you're going to lose sometimes. And if you lose, you can lose bigly, so that's your bad. And also, on top of that, like you say, they're scum, right? They violate laws all the time. There's no protections. What are you talking about, dude? It's I've experienced it. I've had security deposits imposed on me against the law in Ontario. I've had money taken from those security deposits for things that were the responsibility of the landlord. We didn't have access to the backyard, and then the upstairs tenants had all the access to the backyard, and they let it become completely overgrown, like weeds 6-7 feet tall, thick as trees. And then a skunk died in my dugout window in the basement. And before he died, he clawed out the screen on the window, and I got charged for that, right? From the security deposit, which was already illegal, right?
Yeah.
But like for me I would have to privately take them that case against them, right? Have the funds to do that already, when it should be just a criminal act, right? And that landlords have the audacity to complain about anything, in my opinion. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're a protected bunch of children.
I just want to say not all landlords.
Yeah, not all manning them. Is that what you're doing right now?
That is what I'm doing.
That's awesome.
I have a tenant complaint that I'm ignoring right now, actually.
Yeah, good for you.
You're. I saw them moving out. Aren't you renting to family?
Yeah.
Mistake.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
All landlords are scum, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, here we are.
You're managing the property for your father. It's kind of different.
All right. Yeah, he's scum. That's true.
There's a lot of caveats, I think, where there's I think there's very, very, very few instances of somebody having like a legitimately good landlord, just some mom and pop who are living on their own now and just have some spare bedrooms and like, okay, cool. Like they
Even
just
them.
redid but yeah, at the end of the day,
They have the
selling
financial incentive to be rats, basically, right?
exactly. The idea itself is shitty. The extortion of land and property is
Just
inherently bad.
Just because you need somewhere to live, basically, right?
Yeah,
It's
and
disgusting.
the way prices
It's
are going,
violence.
yeah, it's even like, man, just that I don't look at it actively, but I hear about it periodically. The rent prices in Toronto just creeping up day by day, and how I can't even, like, it makes me sick to think that these poor people who have to live in Toronto, who have like nowhere else to go, are just being extorted, or just being like slowly pushed into slavery because hey, we own the market, and it's the crypto fascism is coming.
I saw a study come out that it listed all the affordable cities that the youth could live in Canada. There are none.
Yep.
Yeah.
There is not a single one in all of Canada.
No, it's shitty.
I just want to correct course a little bit here. I feel like I came out slightly too strongly for landlords. We are all scum, myself included. Even wherever I sit in that
even
spectrum.
you,
yeah.
Even you, I don't really view you as a landlord so much as just like you have to rent that property out because you don't have the ability to sell it right now.
Yeah, without revealing too much. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
So it's not like you purchase. If you purchase land with the intent to rent it, that's where I think you become the landlord. Yeah.
You're a fucking.
Which is not what happened with you.
No. I'm just benefiting from a system that is incredibly cruel and inhumane.
You're
racist. Yeah.
You're making the best of a bad situation, and like, who on the grind isn't doing that these days?
Yeah.
Who isn't selling their hobbies just to get by? It's the system itself is just absolutely fucked up. And pardon, I've swore twice already this episode. I apologize.
Do you swear not to do it again?
No, I don't, because I'm about to do it a third time. Listen, folks, find this fucking website and shit all over your goddamn landlords. Do it as much as you possibly can. These people are not your friends.
Yeah, agreed.
They just go nuts. Make sure this website never goes down.
Go bananas.
Although,
just go 8 mode.
I did hear one tiny piece of good news coming out of the Toronto renting situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that is this group called the Toronto Community Land Trust.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Is purchasing rental properties and then just like renting them at decent rates and then using whatever profit they do make to buy more properties. So, like, I mean, in theory, that could snowball into everybody gets decent place to live with no profit motive underlying it. But
I bet you a scumbag fascist is in charge of that program in 3 years.
Yeah,
but
that's
it is a nice idea right now.
Yeah. Altruism is great until somebody goes, wait a minute, I don't have to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean there's someone who's young there who's like 25 and is like, I could make a lot of money doing this. I just got to pretend to be a good person for 10 years or whatever it is.
Creep your way to the top and then kill the emperor.
Yeah. I think we were going to switch gears to the strikes next, unless you had some more to say.
I could.
You have nothing left to say.
The stinger has decided I have been cut off.
I was trying. So you guys want them timed nicely. I really thought that was the moment.
Oh, okay. Sorry, we've put too many complaints against you.
I mean,
you've been really dabbing on.
You've
been really dabbing with the soundboard today. There's a compliment. Enjoy that one.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll get Crazy Frog back in here later.
Oh, please no.
Yes.
We'll go out with that.
Yes. Right, the strikes. There are a bunch of strikes going on. What is it? The
PSAC.
Yes. The
public service workers.
Public service workers. No, they have like an acronym.
Yeah, but fuck their acronym.
Okay. PSAC, isn't it?
Yeah, but what does AC stand for? I can never remember. Yep. Forget it. The public service workers.
The public service workers. Canada.
No.
Canada.
Got the frickin' internet right here.
But then we have to hear somebody type.
Public Service Alliance of Canada.
The Alliance. All right.
It's the Rebel
I
Alliance, folks.
I bet you a CIA plant put that in there just to make that harder to do. Have you ever read the FBI's and CIA's rules for being an undercover agent in left-wing organizations?
No.
Their main piece of advice that they give them is that you should try and slow everything down and make everything as complicated as possible, and always try and like disagree on like fine points of what's it called?
Rhetoric.
Yeah, and that it's part of the reason why I love joking about how leftists are so fractious, because we're just infested by right-wing spies too. So like, of course we're fractious.
Yeah, if only the CIA wasn't down our throats, then we'd all just get along for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe not. When you put it like that.
I mean, there's 3 of us here right now, and none of us can agree on anything. So
We agree on a lot.
we agree on a lot, and I think that's what really matters.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, our brethren, our siblings are striking out there, putting it to the man. Good on them.
Yeah, good on them. I saw a bunch of memes about how all these people who hate Trudeau, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, when Trudeau comes out against these public service workers, he's aligning himself with the Conservatives, right?
Mm-hmm.
He does exactly what the Conservatives want. And anybody who says, oh, I hate Trudeau, that's basically the only place they go is to the right, right? Because of the lack of education and persecution, formal persecution of the left in the entire Anglosphere, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just sounds so fucking ridiculous when I hear people being like, oh, fuck Trudeau, he doesn't want to help anybody, he's just so corrupt. It's like, yeah, of course he is, right? And of course the Liberals are terrible, but we as the left have to put them in there, because if you knuckle-dragging animals who will put just absolute fascists in charge unless we compromise our morality, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The strike would have been legislated back to work by now under Poilievre.
Yeah, I read a stat recently that 40% of UK prime ministers went to Eton College, which is a primary school, private school.
Mm-hmm.
But I only bring it up because I got to read an Eton College exam question from 2011, and the exam says, the year is 2030 to 2040. A lack of petrol inputs from the Middle East have led to riots and discontent at home. The strikes have gone to such an extent that the army had to be called in, and 25 protesters were killed in the putting down of the strikes.
Mm-hmm.
Pretend you are the prime minister and explain why it is moral and justified for these people to be killed during these strikes.
Wow.
Isn't that just so dystopian?
Yeah, and that's what they're being taught.
Yeah.
They're being groomed, you could even say,
Yeah.
to be fascists.
I mean, that's part and parcel. That's part of the gig.
Yeah, that's so gross that I think brings the vanguardism out of me. I consider myself a pretty non-resistance socialist. The non-acceleration socialist that will get there through being peaceful and using unions and talking, using dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
But then I hear shit like that and I'm like, I want deaths, I want heads on spikes. You know what I mean? Like, it just brings the rage out of me. Like, how the audacity, the openness, the knowledge that they'll never face any consequences for doing things like that just brings the violence out of me. But I'll tamp it down. It
Just
won't go anywhere.
that natural fervor to become like a 1700s French revolutionary.
Yes.
Just bubbles up, like, get on the powdered wig and then rip it off and put on a tricone and behead some stupid elitists.
I develop pox marks, and I start calling myself Robespierre immediately as soon as I hear that shit. Like,
yeah.
I love how thoroughly that question gives up the game too.
Yeah, right? Like which one of you will be good at this, right?
There will never be peace in the Middle East. We're never moving away from fossil fuels.
We are absolutely going to kill the strikers.
Yeah.
Like, the military will be called in.
Yeah.
If you answer the question with, Well, first I'd want to know why the military was in there and shooting people. You just instantly fail.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not prime minister material.
I kind of cut it down a bit. They said that the police had failed to put down the protests after martial law was called or something like that. But still, like the protesting is the right of all citizens, and if you can't come to an agreement with them, then you don't have the social contract and you have no legitimacy to rule, right?
Yeah,
So
at that point you're not a prime minister anymore. You're just a failure of a head of state.
you rely on force, not the assent of the people, right? And that's UN shit, right? That's the documents they all signed. And it just sounds so ahistorical too, right? Like, I used to think that the army putting down strikes was something of at the most that happened in the 1920s and 30s, right? But it was shipped abroad, right? And that was my view for a while, that imperialism had been outsourced and things like that. But no, it's just been, they switched gears. We grew up in the middle of a switching gears of the economy, and the army will be back to crush strikers.
Yeah, well, all of the military hardware is in police hands in the United States now. Like,
Yeah.
if your
Well, I
strike
don't
is
know
being
about
put down
that.
by the police, I mean, they've got fucking LRAD cannons. Like,
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to disagree. I think I'm just splitting hairs. The police in America do not need the military to come in to crush strikers, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
but
fair.
the police in America could still be crushed by the American military.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. True.
Yeah. But,
Whereas, like, the British police could actually be overrun by the people. Still.
Well, the imagery in Paris lends credence to that. Go get them. Go get them, Paris.
The French is still not called in anybody to crush those strikes, right?
No,
I don't
they're
know
just still going on.
I think they're just going to try and let it burn out and let people get tired. Yeah. That would be my strat, Yeah, it's a tough issue. It's ephemeral. It's way in the future. It doesn't affect everybody. If you have a good enough life, you can just retire because you have money, right? Like, you don't need to wait for that official get your full benefits thing. Just stop working.
Yeah.
I mean?
Who was it? Who else just was hoping the riots would kind of sort themselves out? Was it Louis the 16th? Yeah, I think it was him. Yeah, poor bastard.
I mean, the wealth of Versailles and the 1,000-year repression with the mailed fist of the peasant, I don't think can apply to the modern life in France.
Yeah.
But then again, the potential for violence is so exponential because of the weapons that we have. So maybe it is there.
Yeah, things just happen quicker these days. Somebody can just get assassinated just like that. We don't need a big mob anymore to get through the guards. It's just like somebody with a good gun just takes a good shot, does it discreetly.
I've been doing a bit. Sorry, I've been doing a bit about the Japanese ex-prime minister who got shot and how that changed things instantly. To attenuate it to France, if Macron got assassinated, the most right-wing despot barbarian would be put in charge, like, overnight. Like,
yeah, that's true.
No, not Le Pen. They feel embarrassed by her, but, like, some back cabinet minister who they just, like, they all can't stand because he's a little too vile and a little too ugly. They'd be like, well, we got to give him the reins. The people are rising up. You know what I mean? Like,
we need somebody to quell the dissidents.
Yep. Just gross.
But 10 on a light note here. All the power to the Alliance. Go get them.
Yeah, go team.
If this contract, if what they're offering you is Garbo, then yeah, reject it. Absolutely, go ahead and reject it.
Yeah.
To end on a negative note, I think public service workers strategically have put themselves into this place. They have allowed the deunionization of the manufacturing sector, right? Well, a narrower and narrower and whiter sector of basically just government workers and a few legacy manufacturers maintain their unions. And it has led to a lot of people being unable to sympathize with them because they have better lives than most of the, immigrant slaves that Canada runs on right now, right?
Yeah, so many people are just fearful, they're, you think of a factory worker at a Toyota plant, and they go, no, we don't want the union. The union will come in and ruin our jobs because they're going to ask for things. But because they have this, this twisted idea that, that the union is like this spoiled brat that gets out whatever they can, that like, wrings out the cloth of money from a company to get what they want.
It's evidence for my... Sorry, go ahead. I thought you were...
No, I'm pretty much done.
It's evidence for this bit I do all the time where I say words mean nothing, right? Because it's against the law to be coercive against unions, right? But it's all implied, it's all shadowy, and unions are suppressed all the time. The place I work at right now has 5 temp agencies that they recruit from, and one of the temp agencies is owned by the manufacturer. And then on top of that, they have the workforce is about 90% Indian, I want to say, at my factory, right? But the people who are hired on and work directly for the company are 90% white, right? It is a racial hierarchy. It's fascism nakedly. It's disgusting, right? There's no other way to get around it. People should die over it, is my opinion. And nothing will happen. The people who own it will get obscenely rich and continue to get obscenely rich. Their descendants will have fabulous lives. They will face no consequences for things that are actual crimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As long as things keep going the way they are, they sure won't.
I'm going to try and unionize them, though. I'm going to be hired anytime soon because I'm white as fuck and I've been working my ass off because I want to get hired on so I can unionize them overnight. I'll play them. There's 3 shifts: the weekend, which is tiny, and then there's days and afternoons. So my plan is to, at 2 a.m. One night after I get hired, is to memorize everybody who works there, who's logging out, because you don't have to log out if you're a temp agency. You just sign a sheet of paper, but you have to touch a computer screen and log in if you're a real worker there.
Okay.
And so I'm going to memorize all the faces of the afternoon shift people who are real workers there, and then I'm going to go around with union cards at near the end of the night, 1:50, 1:45 the next night, and I'm going to get almost all of them, is my opinion, because I'm well known around there now and people like me. And then the next day I'm going to sleep in my car, and the next day I'm going to come in with a clipboard and a collared shirt, and I'm going to go around and lie to the whole day shift and say, I need you to sign this. And I'm just going to get their signatures before management even gets there in the morning, because they start at 6 a.m., right? And so management won't get there till 8 a.m. And I'll have unionized the whole factory before management is even between management leaving at in the evening and getting back in the morning. I have been edging about this.
I love that plan. That's a great idea.
This blitz unionization.
Yeah.
Do you want to join me for a conversation with the DSC, because they have actual unionizers and organizers that might be able to give you tips and tricks?
Sure. That sounds good.
Let me see what I can arrange. Because that'd be it'd be great for everybody who works there, obviously, and that's number one.
I'm leaving, right? I'm going back to school, but I cannot stand how some of these people are treated there, right? Just absolute garbage. There's this one guy, he's hired on and he's Indian, and he keeps asking to let them make him a forklift driver, and they won't let him do it for God knows what reason. And then another thing, there's another Indian guy. He's got to be the smartest guy in the factory besides me, right?
Yeah.
No offense. But I can see the guy's brain behind his eyes, right? And we both are under team leaders right now for 2 25-year-olds who take turns at it, who are these white boys who have to have an IQ of 75, right? It is anti-evolutionary, seditious to the state to not be promoting the fucking smartest guy. You know what I mean? It's crazy to me.
Yeah. Sounds like some saucy nepotism going on.
Yeah, and 10-minute breaks. There's no, if you get hurt, they fire you. If you're a temp agency, there's no such thing as light work. Just on and on the abuses roll. The supervisor, the plant manager, not the supervisor, the plant manager, he openly verbally abuses his workers, right? And supervisors.
That's illegal.
Belittles them. It's so gross. It's so gross. You know what I mean? And there's just no recourse for these people, right? Because of the complex corporate structure that they've set up that would take, years and a knockdown, drag-out legal battle to prove that they prove beyond whatever doubt standard that would be. I think it's reasonable, but
Yeah.
Yeah, that it sounds like the sort of thing where even if you did sneak, like a health and safety inspector in there, or
Yeah, they'd have
whatever.
no power.
Yeah,
They'd
they'd
have
come
no
in and
power.
go, "Well, I see the problem, and I can literally do nothing about it. So sorry." Clipboard over shoulder, peace sign, drive off in their Ferrari.
That's why I'm gonna 007 this motherfucker. Like,
Best of power to you. I hope they don't
Yeah.
listen to this.
I love it.
they, with our hundreds of thousands of listeners, it's bound to get back to them, and I've given up the game.
Only
honestly.
90,000 actually. After that crazy frog bit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That cost us pretty bad. We could
Yeah.
see,
Well.
we could see the numbers in real time on our big fucking war room wall.
Yeah. Yeah. It projects all the standings, so we get to see how many more viewers like the Cop podcast has and the Right
Yep.
Gaze. They're just blowing us out of the water, but
We
yeah,
won't give up, people.
we'll make it back. Yeah, we're here for you.
I do plan to work for unions eventually once I finish school, and
Be good.
the tactics that I have envisioned are much more aggressive than anything that they use. You should be putting pressure on local governments, in my opinion, and their ability to legislate. And then also, you should be doing protests that hurt the provincial government, right? Block the 401 for a day and see how quickly you get your changes, right? Or violence against you, which in turn will give you the media attention that will give you your changes, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there is in my opinion, that the union leadership is weak. There's been a pussification of the leadership of unions because since the 70s, right? The marching orders rationally have been hold on to our gains, right? We are unpopular. We are not going to advance, right? The moment has changed. People are pissed, right? The offensive should be the marching orders of the day. All aggression, all the time. We have the power. All of corporations operate under this thing called light manufacturing or just-in-time manufacturing.
Yes.
And what that really means is that their supply chains are weak. And if you break them down for a day, they lose tens of thousands of dollars an hour, right?
Yep.
If you go toe-to-toe with them, they can't survive it. And your people
absolutely can't.
can survive on dollar McDonald's for weeks and weeks and weeks, right? You can
that's
actually outlast them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such like a base level union tactic is just if we stop, they lose money, and that's like, oh no, that's the thing they absolutely cannot do. We cannot lose the money.
Even in Marx and forever, the thing has been that the owners can last longer than you, but they've so financialized and so stacked this house of cards so tall that if you take one away for a day, they go, oh fuck, that can't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. The actual owners, like the shareholders in distant countries, they'll be fine. But
Yeah.
management here.
They could be out of a job tomorrow, right? That's an existential threat to them.
Yeah, because there are just-in-time management solutions now.
Yep.
Yeah, and then that ripples upward. The anxiety spreads out.
Yeah.
And if enough of those chains start to wither away, then oops, suddenly your company is tits up, and darn, should have unionized.
Yep.
And the pressure on the provincial governments thing is mainly for these, just perfidious, crazy tactics that, relying on the complex corporate structure that I was talking about earlier. If you just put a law in that says for every temp agency that you utilize, you have to pay $1,000 fine every day that you use them while you work in the county that we're in or whatever. What are they going to do? Leave? They've got millions of dollars invested in, and you've just destroyed the value of that property because nobody wants to deal with the laws that are in your little county now. They can't leave, basically, right? And what are they going to do? Fight it out with you in court? You definitely have the authority to do that stuff, right? For the good governance of the county or whatever. So you just have to put the right pressure on the right people.
Yeah, and in the right place too.
Yeah. Yeah,
All right.
That's a great idea. I hope you do that. That would be good for the show too, I think.
Yeah, we might
that would
blow
be a
up
funny
over
bit.
that.
It'd be a very funny bit. Yeah, if Jacob unionized his workplace.
Don't forget to plug our podcast on the unionization cards that you hand out.
who's that guy who unionized the Amazon? Smalls? Justin Smalls?
Chris.
Something Small. Chris Smalls. He's a fucking celebrity now because of what he did there, right? Like, I would do crazy things if I could get some media attention.
You know, yeah, for all the shit we talk about to poo-poo unionization, there's been a lot more happening in like the past 2-3 years than there has in the past 20.
Agreed.
Yeah, not enough. Not enough.
Not nearly enough, but like, you know, maybe these are the first bubbles of a boiling pot.
The sparks that lead to the flame, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for my whole life up until this point, all of the major unions have basically just been inert.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
but
they've been in hibernation mode. Conserve energy, don't lose people, accept losses where you have to.
Yeah.
Since the 70s, basically, right?
Yeah, but then on I think it was Halloween, fucking OPSU went out. Ontario's a union, and then right now, Canada's union's out as well.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Could be a good turnaround, but
again, those government workers, they don't have the what's it called, the leverage that these private workers do, right?
Sure.
Like, when you threaten private interests, the private interests threaten the government, right? Whereas when you threaten the government, you don't really threaten anybody because you don't have the power to threaten anybody.
Yeah, you're not hurting profits.
Unless what you're doing is like affecting...
Unless you're like a Parisian-style uprising that actually threatens the government, which will never, ever happen in the Anglosphere. We are culturally, verboten, prohibited from doing that, right? Like,
in the Anglosphere, we're verboten. Yeah, couldn't have put it better. Yeah, unless what you're doing is actively ruining people's like day-to-day life, and people in their day-to-day life go, "Wait a minute, this sucks," and it's the government's fault.
Mm-hmm.
Or you look at the what do they call that? The cleaning people, the garbage people in Paris, and there's just garbage all around Paris, just turning into mountains of burning garbage because they said, "Well, we hate you, fix it."
They don't care though. The government doesn't care there. They see only the government only really sees an existential threat as like serious profit flows that help them maintain their armies or actually attacking their armies. Those are the only two threats that really governments can give a shit about. Industries that support the armies and the armies themselves. Sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you cut me the heck off, but I was done talking, so psych. Get wrecked, nerd. But let's aggress this topic together. Jacob, you had some more worldly political news to share, to enlighten us with.
Yeah, so it's not worldly political news. It is, right? But it's more just like my meanderings. So Xi Jinping, leader of China, recently came out and said that he doesn't recognize the sovereignty of post-Soviet states. And I think he said Central Asian post-Soviet states. Yeah.
Oh.
But I truly think that the full quote is Central Asian post-Soviet states.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that they think they're Russian either, right? It means that they think they are not independent. Yeah. And that they can fuck with them if they want. But, they're closer to the Russians, and the Russians will probably fuck with them. Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, the stands, right?
We stand.
Yeah. But they've been accompanying this new bellicosity, right, with this term, this buzzword. It's not buzzword, it's more like a catchphrase that they've been pumping out recently, that the world is about to experience a shift that it hasn't seen in 100 years, right? Have you heard this online?
No, but I agree.
I disagree, because the only thing that could mean, right, is the transfer of the hegemony from London to Washington, right? That is the only shift that happened 100 years ago.
Yeah.
The status quo stayed the same after World War I, just barely, but, the Anglosphere managed to hold on, and they were still top dog, right? But the shift was, a technicality, and it doesn't really affect anything. We are Americans, right, as we like to say here in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And we were British before that, right? So when They talk about shifting global hegemony between London and Washington. That's not really a big difference. It's just like a signature difference. It's still in the UK's best interest for America to run the world. Whereas for the world hegemony to shift from now Washington to Beijing, they will go all out over that shit, right? It will make World War I look like a water gun fight. They will throw down to the last man about it. And as I am now working into the bit, America is the dopest shit at war. They will stomp everybody, right? There is nothing anybody can do to stop them. And to make that point really clear, they have a new weapon system called the the Rapid Dragon Missile System. Have you heard of this?
Is this Chinese or American?
American. It's called the Rapid Dragon Missile System, and it's American.
That's upsetting.
Isn't it? It's so bellicose. It's so warlike to name something like that. Obviously saying, hey, the Chinese like dragons. We'll name something that is obviously meant to fuck them up after something culturally inherent like that. But anyways, the weapon system is a missile pod that you put in the back of a C-130, a transport plane, right? Mm. And you drop it out the back and it parachutes and then it fires and it goes super fast for about 1,500 miles and can hit a ship, right? That is so far, right? And America has such air dominance with its F-22s and its carriers of F-35s and the Japanese with their F-16s and things like that, F-18s, whatever they got. They can fly these big transport planes behind their screen of air superiority fighters, right? And just drop ships from like 300-400 miles from behind Taiwan in the strait, right? Go over Taiwan and sink a ship on the other side, right? So the Chinese are never taking Taiwan is basically what I'm trying to get at there. And they're going to try. They're going to try in 2025, 2026, and they're going to get stomped. They're going to get wrecked. Peter Zeihan, a guy me and Julian have both read, he thinks that the Chinese are going to start this war so that they can write their own narrative, that they're going to lose no matter what happens, even if they don't go to war, because of the economic insecurity that they'll face. And there's just like a trade war with Vietnam and Japan, and America's left out of it, that they'll still lose 300 to 500 million people dead, right? Mm-hmm. And
because they want to?
Because they'll starve. They don't have the inputs to keep their food production going.
But like,
sorry,
why are they? Yeah.
Sorry, so they can write the narrative of the defeat, and so that maybe the Chinese Communist Party can survive in power after that 500 million dip in population.
And use it as like a sort of revanchism.
Yes, right.
Oh.
And I kind of forget where I was. Oh, the Americans are dope at war, right?
That's the bit you're on.
Yeah, the Xi Jinping thinking that he can take hegemony from the Americans to such an extent that he would announce it like that, so obliquely, so openly. The everything is always in world politics, it's a poker game where everybody's cheating, right? And so you never admit what you're doing, you never show your cards, you never say what's going to happen, right? And saying what's going to happen means you're really confident it's going to happen, and you need tack-on effects from saying that it's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And I think he's just out to lunch, that he's been too concentrated in power. There's nobody young around him anymore who's really smart that can tell him, that ain't the way it is, boss. That ain't the way it is, chief. I mean, I don't care how much money we make a year. The Americans are great at war. Not just great at war, amazing at war. They could take on the entire world by themselves and walk away from it at the end of it. And they won't. They won't go into it by themselves. The Australians will go in without question. The British will go in without question. The Japanese will go in without question. The Vietnamese will go in without question. The Filipinos are already in. There's something like 10,000 U.S. troops on the Philippines right now. Mm-hmm. You know, the Italians, the Germans. My buddy is Italian, Lou, and he asked me if the Italians had any chance of becoming a resurgent power ever again. Oh, and I said to him, the Italians will speak English by the year 2100, right? They
German.
No, the Germans will speak English by the year 2050. They basically all speak German. Sorry, they basically all speak English already, right? And that German's just the primary language.
Yeah.
Eventually, the cultural hegemony will be to such an extent that we'll just replace German there. You know what I mean? And that's what they were worried about in World War I and World War II. They saw it coming, right?
Yeah.
But the Italians, to even more of an extent. Do you know how many American troops are stationed in Italy? Take a guess.
4?
A little more.
I'm going to go with like 50,000.
40,000.
40,000.
Really good guess. When my friend asked me the question today, I laughed and I said, how many troops do you think are stationed? My guess is that 10,000 to 50,000. So I basically said the same thing. But there are 40,000 airmen, naval officers, and sailors and army personnel stationed in Italy at any time. They're occupied. They're a colony, right? They outlawed speaking English at home recently under their new fascist prime minister because they can see what's happening. The Italian does not have the legs to stand on because they're too small a population to continually pump out culturally significant pieces that they can continue to develop the language off of, right?
Yeah, they really lost something after Sergio stopped making those spaghetti westerns.
Yeah, it is funny, and it does sound ridiculous to an extent, but I like to say all the time that nation states only have one option, right? They only play the game as a map game. They only play it as vicious fascist imperialists, right? Because it's like driven into the DNA code of these institutions, right? It stretches back into the mists of time when only these hard, savage barbarians who accepted each other were put into these positions of power, and they only maintain it through these intricate things of politeness and what's the word I'm looking for? Politeness will do. I'll just leave it there. So that the people who get there are monsters, right? They do not think like you and me. They have no empathy for people. They will do anything to maintain their position of power, right? And that I can empathize with them is that only because of the fact that I got really good at map games, right? Like I don't think like them, right? But this will happen. It will come to pass that the Americans will go supernova, and the Chinese and the Russians can see it coming, and they want to go at them before it becomes too late. And to keep going for a bit,
can I push back a smidge?
Yeah, well, just let me see if I can.
Wrap it
let
up.
me see it.
Wrap your thought up.
Because a lot of people seem to think that the Chinese are going to become this super economy by 2050, right? And that if they maintain peace until then, they can just roll over America. And I just don't know what they're talking about, right? America and China are about the same size, right? And there are 300 million Americans and there are 1.4 billion Chinese. They're tapped out, right? There's no more place to put any more Chinese people, right? And taking care of them is a bitch, right? The America can support, in my opinion, the population density won't match up exactly because of the terrains, and there's less of America that's hospitable than China, but some of the places are much more hospitable than some parts in China that are considered hospitable. And so I think that the natural population max of America will be about 700 or 800 million people. And that's what they're going to aim for and get by 2050, right? And China can't maintain its economic advances and 7% year over year increases, and will eventually collapse and will face these starvation problems. And once they lose these 500 million people to the starvation, and America's gained 400 million people through immigration and continually leveraging their vicious capitalism and the lack of health care and any social policies against their people, that they will eclipse them economically and population-wise again, right?
Quite likely.
Was that how you were going to push back, Julian, or did I cut you off unnecessarily?
No. I mean, I'm glad you completed what you were trying to say, but I disagree. I think the United States went supernova in 1945. I think it's, rusting from the inside out now, and...
Okay, I've got a bit for that as well. America thought about conquering the world in 1945. Lots of their people said, let's do it. We can do it, right? And the really smart people were like, we can't do it yet. There's 140 million of us. there's 200 million Soviets, right? And by the time 1992 rolled around, and there were 300 million Soviets and there were 300 million Americans, right? And they made about the same money a year. I mean, the Americans were doing slightly better, and all that.
Yeah.
But they are far and away the most technologically capable today, right? They make far and away the most money. They have far and away the most nobility, I say, but like it's just the upper classes.
Yeah.
Devoted to
elites.
constantly producing these new technologies and repressing their lower classes, right? Whereas a socialized system doesn't have that benefit. It has to produce for its people all the time and keep them working all the time. Or otherwise there's no buy-in, right? And they rely on that buy-in. Whereas a completely repressive system, a feudal or a capital system, does not rely on that.
Yeah. And honestly, that's the kicker, I think. I think Americans realize, or are very slowly realizing at least, that there's nothing worth dying for anymore, at least within the context of being a national subject.
What if you're conscripted, and if you don't go, your family will be killed?
Well, I mean, I think that would only reinforce the notion, but, there's a gun to your head at that point, and you're going to have to fight. But
I don't think peoples have an ability to rise up against their governments. I think Nazi Germany is the perfect example of this, that, that 5 million Germans can die in the field, but it could be so obvious to everyone with a working brain that they were going to lose that war after 1941, right? December 1941, you can see, oh, you lost. Nice try. Get them next time, right? You should have tapped out. You should have done it immediately. And everyone at the tippy top was, emotionally, psychologically just prohibited from doing that, right? And that they only had the ability to bow and continue to participate within that system because they're bound by things like honor and duty and sacrifice and their love for their families and the threats that underlie that, right? Like, I don't think that the American people have any ability to rise up against a fascist government, Julian.
no, I don't think so either. But they're not gonna fight the same way Chinese might if the Chinese actually believe in their project the way Americans will never be able to again.
Oh, okay, then in that case, where are the Chinese going to go that the Americans care about? You know what I mean? They can't go anywhere. They can't invade Vietnam. That's fucking impossible, right? They invade the Korean Peninsula. The Americans might even let that go because, big deal. But they won't. They'll nuke Pyongyang before that, and Seoul before that happens, right?
Oh, I don't know what the trajectory is. I can't claim to know, but I do think Beijing will be the hegemon in the near future, and it's really just a question of how well the United States can take that reality. Are they going to take it like a bitch and explode? Probably.
We'll see. I bet they go hardcore fascist and stomp anybody who steps to them.
I can see that too.
The F-22, the F-35, just glorious fucking weapons. I like to shit on the F-35, but, there's nothing you can do against a plane that can't be seen, that can strike you from over 100 kilometers away.
Yeah, but it can't fly in the rain, can it?
Yeah, the F-22 can. The F-35 can't. And the F-16 can, right?
Yeah.
The F-A-18, the carrier one.
They've got something else to fill in the strategic gap there, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. And again, that's just to deal with the planes, right? For air superiority. I saw this bit on Star Trek: The Next Generation one time, and Data gets challenged to a strategy game by this alien guy who's supposed to be, their race is supposed to be the best at strategy things.
Okay.
And Data can't beat him. He can't beat him over and over again, right? And eventually he changes strategy and he just decides, I'm just going to not let him win, right? And so they're playing against each other and their fingers are tapping so quickly at all different parts of the screen, both back and forth against each other. That's a great way to think about warfare, especially from the Anglo perspective. We don't need to win. As long as we continue to grow, we will be so hegemonically over the top, more powerful than everyone else. We have the most land. We have the most influence. We have the most people, right? And I'm including Australia, Britain, and Canada in America's direct empire there, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't need to win. We just need to make sure the Chinese don't win, right? And everything goes back to the status quo, then eventually, as things continue to progress naturally, the Americans will be over and above more powerful than everyone else.
Yeah.
It's like a game of Civ.
Yeah, we really went map brain at the last 10 minutes there.
Sorry, I'm sure people hate that.
All right, well, fuck them.
Julian, ever the populist.
Yeah.
Summer is coming, isn't it? And that's an hour. We did it.